to our breaking story now. SABC News has reliably learned that a senior U.S. diplomat in South Africa has resigned with immediate effect. The official is known to be opposed to the Trump administration's policies and apparently disagrees with the White House's approach to South Africa. Well, for more on this, let's bring in now SABC News international editor Sophie Mokoena. Thank you very much, Sophie, for joining us. What is the latest that you can tell us about this resignation?
Well, we know that many of senior employees or diplomats of the U.S. at the embassy and the consul general, some of them, their term of office was coming to an end in different times, as it did happen with the ambassador. But with the current tension, this diplomat took a decision to leave much earlier because you know that currently there's tension between South Africa and the United States of America. And therefore, those people who are posted in different diplomatic missions will probably have problems, particularly those who got those posts under the previous administration, because the Biden administration's outlook and posture towards the countries, particularly the developing countries, was quite different, in particular the African continent. And therefore, with Donald Trump, who has taken a more hostile posture to some of these countries, you will definitely have problems, because then they must now implement those policies and decisions taken by President Trump. And sometimes he is so transactional overnight, he changes things, and people are experiencing challenges. And therefore, our sources tell us that it was based on that diplomat has decided to leave much earlier. We know that she was tasked with the responsibility to present the U.S. statement during the G20 Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting last week. So you can imagine standing there putting a position that you don't agree with, or perhaps your political heads would not agree with. And we know that those people who are at the embassy, some of them would not agree with some of the decisions. I just want to make one example. When I was speaking to the former South African President Thabo Mbeki about the posture of the U.S. against South Africa, one thing that struck me is when he was actually indicating and elaborating about the relations of Africa and the U.S., particularly under the Republicans. And he couldn't make sense of this hostility right now and a 90-degree turn against South Africa. He even mentioned that the previous ambassador, Lana Mas, under President Donald Trump, used to consult broadly, not only the then government, but even those who previously worked in as part of the South African government, particularly a person like Mbeki. She would always engage Mbeki on certain issues, particularly that relate to South Africa and the continent. And therefore, you can imagine all of a sudden there's a shift where everybody must take this hostile posture. You look at the account of the U.S. Embassy in South Africa, sometimes you find yourself asking a question, is this the same account that a few months ago portrayed a unified posture in terms of the relationship between South Africa and the United States of America? And therefore, I think it's becoming unbearable. And I don't think some of the people will be able to function under that kind of an environment.
All right, Sophie, well, thank you very much for giving us that update. And no doubt you and your team will be giving us more on this story a little bit later. That was the news editor here, the international news editor here at the SABC, Sophie Mokoena.